In mid-August, under Alaska's vast cold skies, Trump and Putin will sit down. A meeting that could redraw Europe's borders with the stroke of a pen. From Paris to Berlin, leaders scramble to keep Ukraine from being sidelined in talks about its own survival. As missiles still fall and cities still burn, the question echoes across the continent. Will Ukraine have a seat at the table or be served upon it? As US President Donald Trump prepares to meet Russian President Vladimir Putin in Alaska on August 15th, European leaders are racing to ensure Ukraine has a voice in its own future. The hastily announced summit has set off a flurry of diplomatic moves across European capitals, amid fears it could turn into a two-man negotiation where Moscow and Washington decide the terms to end the 3.5-year war. According to Reuters, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has secured strong backing from both the European Union and NATO, as allies insist Kyiv must be at the table if any deal is to be legitimate.
The U.S. has the power to force Russia to negotiate seriously. Any deal between the U.S. and Russia must have Ukraine and the EU included, for it is a matter of Ukraine's and the whole of Europe's security. As we work towards a sustainable and just peace, international law is clear. All temporarily occupied territories belong to Ukraine. A deal must not provide a springboard for further Russian aggression against Ukraine, the transatlantic alliance, and Europe.
The European response came in the form of a coordinated statement from leaders across the continent. The leaders of Britain, France, Germany, Italy, Poland, Finland, and the European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen issued a joint declaration stating that
the path to peace in Ukraine cannot be decided without Ukraine. We remain committed to the principle that international borders must not be changed by force. The current line of contact should be the starting point of negotiations.
French President Emmanuel Macron took to the social media platform X on August 9th to voice European concerns, writing that
Ukraine's future cannot be decided without the Ukrainians, who have been fighting for their freedom and security for over 3 years now. Europeans will also necessarily be part of the solution, as their own security is at stake.
Zelensky welcomed the joint statement by European leaders, stating that Kyiv values and fully supports their commitment to achieving peace in Ukraine while protecting both Ukrainian and European interests.
The end of the war must be fair, and I am grateful to everyone who stands with Ukraine and our people today for the sake of peace in Ukraine, which is defending the vital security interests of our European nations.
But experts suggest the Europeans may be whistling in the wind for all their efforts to flatter and pacify Trump.
Since his inauguration in January, the Europeans have bought unlimited passes for the Trump roller coaster ride. They have climbed on, strapped themselves in, and regularly screamed out in terror, but failed to get off.
Experts also say Europe is paying the price for not developing a strategic identity independent of US apron strings, as French President Emmanuel Macron has been urging for 8 years. And as much as they want to support and protect Ukraine, experts add that the Europeans are reduced to pleading and guessing what might be decided in their absence. Meanwhile, Trump's comments about territorial concessions have amplified Ukrainian and European anxieties. Speaking on August 8th, Trump suggested that a potential deal would involve some swapping of territories to the betterment of both sides. The Ukrainian president's constitutional constraints became a key talking point. As reported by the Wall Street Journal on August 9th, Zelensky stressed that Ukraine's territorial integrity, enshrined in the Constitution, must be non-negotiable. US Vice President J.D. Vance, speaking to Fox News, acknowledged the difficulty of reaching any agreement, saying that
both the Russians and the Ukrainians probably at the end of the day are going to be unhappy with it.
The Alaska meeting represents the first summit between sitting US and Russian presidents since Joe Biden met Putin in Geneva in June 2021, just 9 months before Moscow sent troops into Ukraine. The choice of Alaska, a territory Russia sold to the United States in 1867, carries its own historical weight. According to Bloomberg, quoting multiple sources familiar with the negotiations, Putin is demanding that Ukraine cede its entire eastern Donbas area to Russia as well as Crimea, which Russian forces illegally annexed in 2014, as conditions to unlock a ceasefire and enter negotiations over a lasting settlement. NATO Secretary-General Mark Rutte, speaking on ABC's This Week on August 10th, suggested that any deal might involve Ukraine acknowledging lost control of territory without formally giving up sovereignty.
It will be about testing Putin, how serious he is on bringing this terrible war to an end. It will be, of course, about security guarantees, but also about the absolute need to acknowledge that Ukraine decides on its own future.
The Institute for the Study of War highlighted the strategic implications of Putin's demands, noting that conceding the Donetsk region would force Ukraine to abandon its fortress belt, the main fortified defensive line in Donetsk Oblast since 2014, potentially exposing Ukraine to further aggression. Russian officials have responded with characteristic hostility to European involvement. Former Russian President Dmitry Medvedev on August 10th posted on social media,
"The Euro imbeciles are trying to prevent American efforts to help resolve the Ukrainian conflict."
While Russian Foreign Ministry spokesperson Maria Zakharova made inflammatory comments comparing Ukraine's relationship with the European Union to necrophilia. The human cost continues to mount as diplomatic efforts intensify. According to Ukrainian officials, as reported by Reuters on August 10th, Russian strikes injured at least 12 people in Ukraine's Zaporizhia region, prompting Zelensky to declare that
is why sanctions are needed, pressure is needed.
As per the BBC, overnight attacks saw Ukraine's Air Force intercept 16 of 47 Russian drones, while 31 drones hit targets across 15 different locations. The attacks killed 4 people across multiple regions, including 2 who died when a Russian drone hit a minibus in Kherson suburbs.